How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet home cocktail maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet cocktail maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail, bartesian.com/cocktail.
Life insurance. What's your excuse for putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think your work coverage is enough? There's a lot of excuses for putting off life insurance, but one big reason why you shouldn't. If the unexpected were to happen to you, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' tuition, and all the other bills? In a time of grief, the last thing you would want is for your family to have to sell the house and struggle to survive financially. At Ethos, we could get you covered in just 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Rates can increase the longer you wait, so no more excuses. Take 10 minutes today and discover the modern way to get the life insurance coverage you need. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethoslife.com/audio. That's ethoslife.com/audio.
Steering wheel. Collapse the steering wheel here. Steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on. Whoa.
You like my bass? You like it?
How the f*** is that possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? I'm on radio. The race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Hanger Straight.
I am so annoyed.
Nice. Well, welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 751, the Russian Grand Prix review. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you
You
here.
must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to review the Russian Grand Prix. You know how we do this.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
How you doing, Paul?
Good. Yep.
Now, it must be said,
California.
Paul, everyone watching this on YouTube will know that you're sitting in a hotel room.
Yes.
At
Do you
Long
like how I
Beach.
decorated it?
I do. Yeah, I like your choice in artwork there. I don't know what that is. That was a coral. Okay.
I spent a lot of time painting that
Pretty
today.
nice. So if there is a dodgy connection or it fades in and out, you're going to have to bear with us, folks, because Paul's on a dodgy hotel Wi-Fi. But Paul, tell us exactly why you're in a hotel room at Long Beach and how exactly the number 23 Heart of Racing team did at the Long Beach race for IMSA.
Yeah, so obviously you kind of let the cat out of the bag. I'm here for the Long Beach Grand Prix, which is a great, one of the best US races, you know, no matter what the series is, but it's a great event. The crowd are crazy. It's pretty cool there. I don't know if you saw that little video of me on the Tiger going down pit lane. Well, we come from our paddock and then we go down half the track as well at that point, and the crowd are just making all kinds of crazy noises and stuff. And the Grand Prix got a massive history, you know, starting with Formula One, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's how I always remember it, you know. The Long Beach Grand Prix of the 70s and early 80s. So it's cool to be a part of that race. But yeah, the fans are very knowledgeable in California in general. But the Long Beach crowd have just they just come back year after year after year. So it was good. It was great to have the IMSA paddock out there. We had a bunch of cars in our class. We had 17 cars, the biggest field so far this year. So it was a mighty street fight. And yeah, we got the 23 car and the 27 car now. So we're running a 2-car team, which is quite the undertaking. And yeah, we did okay. We didn't get great qualifying. Generally our car doesn't qualify that well because it's a bit too kind on its tires, so we can't get enough out of it. But in the race, it's a tough track to pass on. We had a little bit of a struggle getting out of some of the slower corners, which is optimum for being able to pass at the end of the long straight. So we had a bit of trouble in traffic. We had a decent car. We ended up P6, which isn't bad. So damage control, really. We thought we might have been better here, but it just didn't quite pull out. So it's okay. We're in the lead of the sprint championship still, which is for all the shorter races pegged together, and there's only one of those left. So we just got to make that happen at VAR, and still third in the overall championship. So we've still got a shot at both those championships. So that's good, because if you leave Long Beach with your car up against the wall, then you definitely don't get the points that you need for doing things like that. So it was good. It was good event. As I said, the drivers really liked it. We just didn't quite have the package, and the Aston didn't quite suit the track that well.
It looked like, I saw a picture. It looked like your number 23 did get a little close to the wall.
It does. Yeah, we have to change a few body panels and things, for the next race. But it's all right. Just a little
was
straight.
That Roman or Ross?
Really a flat wood. Could have been either of them. Yeah. They're both on it, and I think Roman was more in the fight with a bunch of cars. So it's probably more likely Roman. But you got to get that close on the street circuit.
Yeah, you do.
You give an inch away, and other people don't, and you're behind. So you occasionally just have to tap the wall. You just hope it doesn't tap it enough to do any damage.
And you got to meet Bob.
I got to meet Bob. Yeah. One of Bob came by the paddock, and as I said, anyone that comes to any of these races who listen to the podcast, and I've met a few along the way now over the past couple of years, I've been doing the Heart of Racing team. And yeah, Bob came by, brought a poster. He'd been listening 6 years, was a super guy. And he asked me to sign the poster, which was nice of him. Then I took it back and got all the drivers to sign it, and they were trying to figure out, why are you signing this poster? I'm like, I don't know. He was wondering why I got you to sign a poster. Quite honestly, that was a fun conversation for him. But they know what they do. And honestly, a few times in the year it happens. I can't remember where it was a couple of races ago. Someone stopped Roman and then asked where I was. So
That's so
nice.
funny.
Keeps their egos down a little bit.
Yeah, right. Keep those drivers in check.
Yeah. But hi, Bob. I'm
hey,
not sure
Bob.
I know, as I said, he's been listening a long time.
That's
I don't know
great.
if he watches the YouTube, but super nice guy. So more than happy to sit and chat with any of the Parc Fermé listeners.
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome. It's great that Bob went there, and and I think maybe for next season, we ought to just you could show up with the drivers and have your own hero card stack ready to sign. It's the Paul Charsley hero card.
I'll just sit down in the third chair.
Third chair.
Yeah. Hey guys.
At the autograph session. Just hey.
Aren't you supposed to be a manager meeting? No, I skipped it to be here.
Yeah. No, I got a fan. Oh, that's great. Excellent.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, I happen to know that you not only engage in a fierce Long Beach Grand Prix race of your own team at the number 23 Aston Martin, but you also were able to squeeze in the Russian Grand Prix, and you happened to watch that.
I did.
And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to review that. First, let's talk about the track a little bit. Certainly, it was a rainy sort of weekend. Almost looked like we get a dry race in, but we'll talk about more of that later. But let's talk about this track a little bit. Long straights, curved, traditionally not a super high passing, but we were sort of betrayed. We went into this weekend thinking, Russian Grand Prix usually isn't the most exciting race. It's a gentle track on the tires. They brought the softest compound on offer, but probably not a lot of tire strategy in war. But it's not really how it turned out, Paul. And the track actually produced a pretty good race. So,
Sure did.
what are the key features about the track that catch your eye?
Well, just what caught my eye mostly was how much grip was actually in the track. Mm-hmm. I could visually see it on how much the tire was digging into the track, which we normally think, Valtteri Bottas, driving on top of the track, as we like to call it in racing, rather than, really pushing in. But the car seemed to be hooked up, and that bodes well for passing opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. If there's just one line and everyone's kind of skating on top of the track, it's a little difficult. But so that was something unusual visually that I saw just in the practices and qualifying, etc., which turned out to, I think had a hand in making the track a bit more raceable once the green flag or lights out happened. Obviously 2 major braking zones, pretty characterless, a lot of 90-degree turns, nothing super exciting.
No elevation.
No elevation. So the braking zones are ultra important. One's in a very straight line at the end of a very long straight, and the other one's after a very, very long curve, right? And that's probably the most difficult part of the track. I've talked about it in the track talks before, that when the car's loaded up any way or fashion, and you're under heavy braking, you're really on the edge of locking the tires up every time. So the drivers definitely have to be doing something with that brake pedal to alleviate some of that pressure when they've got that steering input in. And we saw some passing maneuvers in there as well. And then obviously you've got the long left-hander, which we've seen change over the years as to what kind of corner that was. It was a flat out corner one year, and it was sometimes everyone can go side by side other years. So it's interesting how this track does really change, even though no one ever runs on it from year to year. But I think the braking zones are important, making a slippery car, being able to run with as little downforce as you can, and get away with it, in the braking zones, because you need downforce for braking, not just for cornering. The corners being the 90-degree aren't really a lot of load on, aero load. They don't need a lot of downforce to get through those corners, because it's your brake, turn, accelerate through them. But it definitely did produce a good race this year. So I was very happy to have that. I didn't even mind rewatching a little bits of here. Usually I'm just like, oh, thank God the Russian Grand Prix is over.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk about it and move on,
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, it kind of set it up a little bit as you went into the weekend. We knew that Max Verstappen was nursing a 3 grid place penalty. Red Bull took the option to change the engine, so he started at the back. Intriguingly, Bottas started at the back too. He took another engine. He just took an engine, the previous Grand Prix, and then they took another, leading some people thinking, well, they took an engine to put him back ahead of Max to try to hold Max back. Lewis was really out of position, starting 4th. Lando on pole. And then the rain came in, which changed a lot of things. I tweeted a picture from the broadcast that I thought was interesting right after qualifying, when they were all pulled up in Parc Fermé. And you could see the back tires of the slicks that had just switched to slicks at the end of Q3. Yeah. And it was interesting that the smoke coming off the tires because of the temperature difference, and both those tires, Russell and Lando rear tires, just the steam coming off it was pretty interesting. Kind of lends itself to your point of, they were generating some decent heat in those tires from that track.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So anyway, let's jump into the race. Let's talk about the race. First up, we're talking about Mercedes. Absolutely. Lewis Hamilton in P1, Valtteri Bottas in P5. Lewis had a bit of a ragged weekend going by hitting the pit entry wall during qualifying, and then only sliding in 4th on the grid behind Norris, Sainz, and George Russell. So, kind of out of position a little bit, Paul, from qualifying, not where he would have expected. I think he was a little embarrassed by that. It happens. They waited late on quali to, he ran 2 laps on the inters before coming in for the slicks, and that really left him precious little time for him, Valtteri, to get him double stacked and the slicks on and get back out. And so I think he was trying to hustle into the pit lane, clouded the wall, needed a new front wing, held Bottas up. So a little bit of a clown show over there for a team as professional as Mercedes. But regardless of that, he started 4th on the grid. But come Sunday, he still had a goal of securing his 100th Grand Prix victory because his antagonist, Max Verstappen, was starting at the very back of the grid. So this bode well for him, even in fourth, in my mind, still the odds-on favorite of winning. Lewis struggled at the start, though. He dropped down to seventh, but remained calm, as you would expect him to do, passed a few cars, and then came out after his pit stop just 8 seconds behind race leader Lando Norris. Now, around lap 47, Paul, we kind of know what happened around lap 47, right?
Yes.
This is what happened, right? Yeah, exactly. So out comes the rain, and it started to really start light drizzle really at the beginning on really it sort of impacted turn 5 and 7 at the beginning. And while Lando Norris and Lewis looked like at the beginning there that they may try to stay out, there was just a few laps left that they'd try to stay out. Mercedes told Lewis that there was worse rain coming and to box. And Lewis, like a veteran who trusts his team, boxed. And even though Lando stayed out, and you know, that was that fine line, that critical moment of when you boxed for those inters. And that was the right move as Norris slid off track and struggled with the rain as it really started to come down. Now, Lewis at that point comes out on his inners and just devoured that 30-second delta in no time. And Lando Norris is sliding around the track just trying to get to pit lane. And this gave Lewis effectively his 100th career win in a great effort. Took the lead in the Drivers' Championship. And I was looking at this and look, we'll get to Lando in a minute when we talk about McLaren, but certainly if there's a lesson to be learned, it's that trust is built between a driver and their team. It's just critical in situations like this because that trust is built over time, and heeding that trust is a real measure of a mature, measured veteran's approach as Lewis would have. Lando, being newer to Formula One, simply felt like he could stay out. But Lewis, implicitly trusting Bono and the team, came in, and I would say in aggregate of the race, Paul, he was patient. He just waited for this race to come to him, and it eventually did. There was moments that he was concerned whether he was, getting enough heat or his tire drag or whatever it might have been. But he was very measured and just waited for that race, trusted that team when they said box. He stayed out with Lando because Lando did. And they said, no, box. It's going to get worse, box. And he just trusted him and pulled in. It was the right call.
Right. Obviously, he didn't trust him emphatically because he skipped it the first lap.
The first time, right.
Right, questioning it. And I think that was still okay to stay out there for that one lap. And, we're dealing with, the gods in the sky here. And, what team has the best data, and do you have data? I've been through it with the IMSA team where you're just trying to, you don't have a defined, absolutely 100%. This is what's going to happen. You're still rolling dice a little bit, but he had nothing to lose being in that second position, right? I mean, Perez was 40 something seconds behind him. So it was a free stop.
Right.
The worst he was going to do was going to come out 20 seconds ahead of Perez and finish second. Because Perez was on the same tire, right?
Right.
I think. Yeah. So he wasn't under threat from behind. So all he could do was do good. I guess if he thought it was so tricky, in the championship, they're just trying to beat Max.
Right.
This situation, obviously he's going to be relaxed, going to be calm. He's not in a fight, with Max right this second. He's just trying to make use of, all the points that he can get over Max, which, obviously we saw at the end, he didn't make that many, but I think that was kind of why he wasn't so panicked and the second place to Lando was the reason why it was a lot easier for him to pit in and let Lando go out there because he wasn't losing anything in the championship to Verstappen, right?
Right.
We've seen Lewis question his team many times before.
Sure.
And, from the driver's seat, you just don't have all that info. Right. If you think it's, if the weather's calm, then the driver can make the best decision. But if the weather's coming, then you have to trust the team to say it's absolutely coming and you're not going to lose anything by coming in and boxing at that point, and which he didn't. And he ended up obviously gaining his 100th win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the team were pretty adamant. No, it's going to get a lot worse by.
Yeah, and they were obviously right. Yeah,
and that's what a team should do.
Half the grid didn't get it right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I thought it was a real measured drive from Lewis because I would say on balance, there's a lot of opportunities over the balance of the weekend to panic a little bit.
Yeah,
but they didn't. And it was a really good drive to his 100th win, and he had to work for that one. That's for sure.
Yes, he did.
And just wait for that race to develop, and it didn't really develop until the last 4 or 5 laps.
And he had a good car. I would have rather than been no rain. I mean, I enjoyed the heck out of this race.
Yep.
Not because of the last 3 laps. The last 3 laps kind of ruined the race for me, quite honestly, because I think it put people out of position to positions they'd earned. I was really looking forward to the battle between Lando and Lewis, because I know Lando thought he had the race won, but I really think that Lewis, you can never count Lewis out.
No.
And so I was excited to see what was going to come of that, and what was Lewis saving up? What ideas did he have to try and get Lando for the win? Because he's never going to stop going for the win. That's for sure.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the rain kind of overturned the apple cart, because I was really looking forward to seeing that head-to-head battle with Lewis and Lando in the lead. Lando saying, well, I was managing fuel, but everything was under control, and I think I could have won this on merit. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. No. But I'm with you also. You can't count out what tricks Lewis and Mercedes have up their sleeve to get around him,
Right.
So yeah, I think in that sense it was good, and I also think, Paul, to your point, in Mercedes, they really they were tracking Max. That was the critical thing. Mm-hmm. And there was some question about early in the race at that first stint, why didn't they bring Lewis in when Lance, with the undercut, and that was going to put the threat of putting him behind Lance, and they didn't want to do that. Why didn't they box Lewis? But I think in the end of the day, they were pegging Max Verstappen. That's who they were tracking. That's who they were, whatever we do, we finish ahead of Max, and if Max came in for inners, Lewis was too. It was the right call. But I think in that case, it was, I agree with you. I would have loved to seen Lewis go head to head with Lando there. That would have been great.
Lando.
Yes. Valtteri took an engine change. Again, some argued that it was to put the cat amongst the pigeon and try to hold Max off from scything through the field from the back. And if that truly was the plan, which I don't know that it was, but if that truly was the plan, I think Bottas failed miserably, right? I mean, well, Max went around Valtteri like he was stapled to the tarmac, Mm-hmm. So that didn't really work. Instead, Valtteri turned... he turned his race around really at the time of the rain, because mainly he trundled around midfield until the rain came. And then a very well-timed stop for the inters really saw him launch himself all the way up to P5. And it was kind of interesting because the team had told him, we think a P5 is in the offering. And I think the Sky Crew, that a P5, you kidding? He's down in 16th, that's not going to happen. And it did. But the race was, in my mind, is kind of a feather in cap for Mercedes, showing they still got the plot. They still get the strategy. They still understand what's going on. It was a good call. They managed Lewis properly. They managed Valtteri properly. Even Toto coming on the radio and encouraging Valtteri. Come on, Valtteri. And Lewis, you can win this race. And he did.
Yeah, I wasn't enamored with Bottas's race. I actually expected him to do way better here.
I did too.
He's always been good here, but I was, if that's what they did.
How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet Home Cocktail Maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet Cocktail Maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail, Bartesian.com/cocktail.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Fair enough. If they wanted to put Bottas back there to keep Verstappen at bay, yeah, absolutely. But Bottas doesn't do the job. That is disappointing. And as you say, he didn't do anything. He was one of the guys I felt like finished way out of position to what he deserved. I think he was very lucky to be in P5. I say there's winners and losers in that lottery with the rain. So overall, I think he had a very poor race, but he benefited with way more points and stealing some points from people who were actually driving better than them today.
Yeah, I agree. Red Bull Max Verstappen P2. Sergio Perez. Where did Sergio?
You like my face? You like it?
Yeah, I think Sergio was okay. Pretty good. Yeah. I think the pit stop not so much.
Yeah, not so much. Well, Max started from the back doing an engine change and a 3-place grid penalty from Italy, but he did make his way up through the field before kind of stalling out with worn tires. So he kind of ran through those tires getting up to where he was, but then sort of kind of held station there in midfield. Now he stopped for medium compounds and then ran them hard to get through the field. And this kind of left him vulnerable at that point in time because Alonso had run a very long first stint. So Alonso on fresh tires got around Max, and he was kind of a sitting duck. But when the rain came, it was a perfectly timed stop that launched Max ahead of Alonso and Sainz to take second. And I doubt many felt that he would finish on the podium, let alone in second place, and that was, the only thing you say about that, Paul, is that was some serious damage limitation from Red Bull and Max. I think Christian Horner said a second place feels like a win at this point.
Yeah. Very fortuitous for Max. I mean, he was driving well though. He was making moves and he was making it happen, putting himself in a position where, obviously, as said, he won the rain lottery there and came out and finished second, blowing everyone's, minds that he could do that. But obviously that's what that rain brings. But I think overall he was really driving actually a very good race, and whatever he was going to get, which I assumed he would be like 6th or 7th, because the midfield is pretty stout. Yeah. Right. They're not just going to lay over and move out of the way for Max, that's for sure. So I think he was still on for a decent finish and a really good damage limitation. And, I say the bonus was that the rain came and he was able to jump that too. But
I was thinking, because he got hung up, you remember, behind Sainz and Ricardo. Yeah. And that's kind of where he stalled out. And I thought, boy, at that point, I thought, man, he's down 6 or something like that. I thought, man, if he could get around Dan, maybe a P5, and then Perez would let him around. And then, but Perez came out on fresh tires and they didn't back him up, and Alonso got around Max, and then Perez took off and made a couple great passes and got up there. And I thought, well, they're not going to use Perez,
No, it was, I mean, Perez just had too much pace. He would have they could have done that, but I don't know. They're still they still want to win the Constructors' Championship.
Absolutely.
They don't just want to win Max a Drivers' Championship. And they needed Perez to go out there and beat Bottas and score the points that Max wouldn't have been able to score, right? Hadn't it been for the deal at the end. So I think it was a good move, and they let Perez go. I think he was very unlucky, with the slow pit stop. But when they did do the pit stop, he came out actually way higher than I thought he would. But before that, I was looking at it, I was like, because there was a train that were losing, and I can't remember who they were behind. But there was a big enough gap for him to pit and come out in front of this train because they were being held up. And as soon as the person that was leading that train, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, and that gang of faster cars were unleashed, that's when they should have pitted Perez, but they pitted him one lap later. Because they could have got him in and out ahead of that group, and he would have been definitely on for top 3 finish,
Right.
barring the weather. So I thought it was a good race, good strategy by them, and I think he actually had good pace. And just a little sticky nut or sticky button or whatever, just kind of put him back a little further into the clutches where he was a bit closer to Max, I guess.
Yeah, I was watching and I just wasn't doing the math or connecting the dots. I think when I was watching, he ran that long first stunt. There were moments when I thought he could have been used maybe to hassle Lewis a little bit.
Yeah.
But they chose not to do that, and fair enough. He could have went for the undercut and try to get in the podium and those kind of things.
Yeah.
He tried to stay out when the rain came, and then he lost several places when that happened, and in that process. And it's a shame because I think, like you said, I think he could have had a much better result than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of wondering, I got done watching that and I was just looking at the results and looking where Sergio was. And I thought, I don't know. I mean, did they kind of just put him out there as a rolling strategy option just to kind of see where he is and what they could do with him based upon where he's at? And as the race unfolded, because, strategy is all in real time. I wasn't sure. And then I was starting to think, well, did they ever truly utilize him or give him the focus that he needed to get the podium? Because by the time he had those fresh tires, a podium was on
for
third place, and I kind of felt like, if they were going to box Max and the right option was Inters, why didn't they stack him and box, Sergio? But anyway, it could have been Sergio's call. I don't know.
Yeah, I think as far as the part as they were qualified, I think they weren't. It would be a bit messy and could be counterproductive to try and keep Perez out there just to help Max. I think because they were so separated at the beginning, they went for premium strategy for both drivers.
Yeah,
and they just stuck to that.
Yeah, could be. Let's see, Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, P15, Carlos Sainz in P3, a great podium. Carlos had a great start, jumped Norris at the start, was leading for several laps before Norris got back around him. He boxed early, Paul, and that meant that he'd be really ultimately struggling with worn tires at the end. So the team felt that, and even radioed and said, hey, we think a P5 is possible, and he's like, only a P5. He wasn't happy. He was disappointed.
I want to win.
Yes. Yeah. But they thought it might be the best they could manage. But then came the rain, and this allowed him to dump off the worn tires, slap on the inners. They made the right call. He got in there and he got up into the podium. It was a great result for Carlos.
Yeah.
Fabulous weekend on balance. I mean, he qualified in second place by those changing conditions. And then here the team and Carlos made the right call, changing conditions. Charles Leclerc didn't, but Carlos did. And P3, a great result. And I kind of feel like he needed that. Don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
The string of kind of last few races
having a couple of off mistakes, personal errors. Yeah. He got rid of that monkey. That was a good run. And it's it was a good start, and obviously the start at this track, you don't actually want to be in pole position, and you can see the power of the draft even without DRS, right? Coming in there, we saw Russell off to the left, who was a little bit out in the air, and obviously Lando's right there in the air, and then there was Sainz just in the tunnel of nothing, and just got massive speed and got the job done. But as we saw that first stint lead on, you could tell the Ferrari isn't quite there with the McLaren, and the reason he was able to keep that gap is he was pushing the tires more than Lando needed to,
right? And
then in the end, he just didn't have enough tire to keep that strength up when they're on big tanks and all of fuel and everything. So ultimately, I think if Lando wanted to, he could have pushed harder and got Ryan Sainz earlier, but he had the pace in hand. He could save fuel, he could save the tires, and I think Lando just waited till pretty much Carlos had burned off the rubber to make it easy for him to get round, which eventually he did.
Yeah, exactly. Charles Leclerc had a long first stint. He started at the back due to an engine change as well, but as he made his way forward well into the points. And then the rain came, and he, like Lando, tried to stay out, and we know how that worked out, right? Not good. He, like Lando, thought that the rain would subside, but it didn't, and he nearly put the car on the wall, costing him points. He lost places, fell down to P15. And that's difficult because, they're in a battle for the Constructors' Championship. And let me say it this way. The teams want to win the Drivers' Championship, for sure. Absolutely. And the drivers want to win it. But the one that pays money is the Constructors' Championship.
Right.
So that's the key to the teams. Ultimately, drivers come and go, but the key is the Constructors, because that's worth millions of dollars. So it's difficult for Charles being down there with Carlos on P3, and you kind of wonder what happened. So a third place finish for Sainz does help Ferrari in their battle against McLaren, but it hurt with Charles down in P15. But, he's not the only one that made a decision like that.
No, there's not much to say. He was doing a better job than Bottas to bring the car up. He looked damn racy. He was on Max's tail for a good portion, setting similar lap times. Yeah, he was doing well, but once I said that lottery at the end, just kind of his result was just determined on those 3 laps, unfortunately. So, but still, I think the Ferrari's doing a good job. I think the car's getting more racy, and McLaren are doing a better job. But both those teams are making it difficult for the Mercedes and Red Bull teams right now, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
McLaren, Lando Norris P7, Daniel Ricciardo in P4. Lando had the weekend of his life going here. He had pole position and eventually repassing Sainz for the lead, was leading the race, cruising to his first victory. And even with Lewis breathing down his neck at around about a second gap, Lando still felt he had things completely under control. He was in fuel save mode. He felt like he still had everything under control, and that he could hold off the 7-time champ. That is until the rain came. And while the team told him to box, Lando felt the light rain in T5, turn 5 and turn 7 was manageable for 3 or 4 more laps to the end of the race. But unlike Lewis and Mercedes, the team, I don't know if it was a case that the team just weren't stern enough in telling Lando that the rain was going to get much worse. Look, you could forgive Lando for seeing his first win just a few laps away and not wanting to cede that position to Hamilton if he didn't box. But Hamilton did box, and this left Lando making another lap in a real downpour, and that was, very difficult. And Lewis's inners, he just devoured that 30 or so second lead, and Lando was left drifting backwards down the field, meaning that his decision not only cost a win, but it also cost a podium. And that's a tough lesson that he probably will never make again. He'll probably never repeat that. But, look, it's easy to sit after the race and have the hindsight and say, because I don't know, was it a case, he was pretty animated. He was saying, no, we're not boxing, because he felt like it was light enough rain that he could manage it. And and he saw Lewis still behind him staying out. So he was like, no, there's only a couple laps to go. I can manage it. Was it a case of him just disobeying what the team said? Or in that case, Paul, if you're on the team wall, like you are on a race weekend, is that a case where the team needs to radio, no, Lando, it's going to get much worse, box now, and you got to get stern with him? Or could it simply been the case that McLaren, they themselves didn't have the finite data that maybe Mercedes did in telling Lewis that it was going to get much worse?
Yeah, the communication thing was a big thing here. Attitude and communication. I actually went back and rode those last few laps with Lando, because when you hear on TV, you hear the radio messages, they're delayed. Yeah. They're picking and choosing, and then they throw them out there. They're not real time. So it's like, when did you say this, and when did the team say this, right? And Lando, obviously we heard the no, the big shout, right? And there's no place for that within the team. And I think if someone's shouting at you, right, and the team are in the pit lane, Lando's out there, obviously, there's a reason, he's on edge. He's trying to win his first race. He's got to focus on his driving, depends on where these messages are coming in the middle of the corner, which is when I was riding in with him, some of these messages coming when he's in the middle of the corner. So inappropriate timing is very important, important too. So the team at that point, you're like, you don't want to keep winding up the driver, right? He's already on edge. And then, so you don't want to keep talking to him because he's already set. He basically just doesn't want to hear anything and wants to do his own thing. So I think Lando's reaction to the questions put the team in a position where they weren't quite comfortable in demanding something out of him or asking more information that maybe they could make a better decision from, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think Lando kind of set the stage there. Once Lando said no, he went by the pit lane, that's when Lewis came in. The team then radio back said, okay, you've got to make these tires work, because at that point they wanted to win the race. Right. And that's all they were focused on. And at that point, if Lando would come in the lap after Lewis, he would have been okay, but he wasn't going to win the race. Right. He was going to be second. Yep. And so the team rolled the dice on, we got to stick with these tires because it's the only way we can win the race. Now we're going to hope for the best. And obviously it panned out that it was a bad mistake. So I think Lando needs to analyze himself a little bit more. Mm-hmm. The team should be dictating because they're looking at the weather. Mm-hmm. Lando is very just focused on what the track looks like right now. He's not looking around in the clouds. He's not looking at the weather map. Right. And the track that he was driving at that moment in time was a track you'd stay on slicks. Right. So everything was about the future, not about the here and now. And that's the only way when I said earlier, if all the weather's gone, the driver should be the one that's determining, do we stay in inters? Do we go to full west? Do we go to slicks? That's reasonable to put that on the driver. But when the weather's coming in, the team need to, just like they did with Lewis, say, no, you pit this time, it's getting bad. But I think the team just didn't want to give up on that race win, and they were willing to lose, more for the big gain that they possibly could have come out of it. Mm-hmm. It was fun riding around with him, though, because it actually reminded me of time when I was testing his Formula car, and we only had slicks, right? And it started to rain. And so I just went out there for like 10 laps on slicks in the rain. It looked identical. I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly what it feels like right now. But basically on slicks in the rain, you're just managing that throttle, and you're just trying to find some kind of forward momentum, some bite somewhere on the track to keep you going. For me, it was a lot of fun because I was just trying to teach myself how to drive in those conditions. I wasn't under pressure trying to win a Grand Prix. Right. Lando was like the worst thing in the world that he had to do it. It was interesting that he didn't go to higher gears, mind you. He was still like in first and second gear, where I personally would have chose a higher gear to make it a little easy, because he was really having problems with the throttle and grip levels and wheel spin, etc. So generally in those times you go to a higher gear to make the throttle a little less sensitive for that stuff. But so it was fun. It was fun to watch. Had a little memory flashback from young Charlesy as a youngster driving a Formula car. But really tough. Really, I hate it for him. Yeah. I think he drove an impeccable weekend, and for him to lose it in that little bit of the end was pretty brutal and gutting to watch for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to watch, and I don't know. I've gone on a rant on this before, but I don't know if it's all the British press says this, because they're so, for all the right reasons, they're heavily leveraged in what Lewis achieves and what Lewis has done. But they keep referring to Lando and George and Max and Charles Leclerc and Pierre, these are very talented young stars of the future. They're not, they're here. They're here. There's no in the future. Yeah. Lando was on pole and heading to win that, right?
Yeah, all three of them, right?
All three of them, yeah.
Were in qualifying.
Yes.
What could do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Carlos Sainz is there. Charles Leclerc had a great drive. Max Verstappen is battling for. They're in no, one of these days this kid's going to be really. They're here now. Okay, right. So stop with the whole. They're going to be really, future stars. That's BS. They're stars now. Yeah. And no offense to Lewis, but whenever you hear. Lewis talk, and, he gets some people cheering and stuff like that. But then when Lando comes up, they go crazy. George comes up, they go crazy. I mean, people are. It's okay that that the fans have resonated with the younger generation drivers.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, nobody get any offended on Lewis's behalf. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
You know, he's had his glory and he's still doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's an interesting fan base differential. You know, Lewis has the fan base that he built up through, you know, his years of racing, you know, his ideology, people like him, people hate him, whatever. But he's obviously got a big fan. Team LH is a pretty massive amount of people. And he's done it over the many years that he's been driving in Formula One. And his ultimate success has brought them in. And the new young guys, it's like,
how would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet Home Cocktail Maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet Cocktail Maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail. Bartesian.com/cocktail.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You know, they're fun, you know, they're friendly. They're a whole different group of drivers to what Lewis Hamilton was coming in. And, you know, the TV, the Netflix thing has a big thing to do with it, but just their general interaction with the younger crowd, they are bringing in fans that wouldn't be fans. And Lewis is keeping fans that he's had for a very long time, right? So they actually generate more fans for F1 than Lewis is right now, for sure. You know, I've met some, you know, young girls usually that they're like, oh, I watched the Netflix show. I love Lando, you know, and it's all, it's funny. It's funny how different this new fan base is, but they're getting into it, you know, and which is great to see. Cause I was a little worried, you know, not so long ago that where are the new F1 fans coming from?
Right.
You know, it was not looking pretty, right? And these guys have really, you know, built Formula One to have a really good future and a lot more fan base, you know, new fan base coming in. So I think it's great. Yeah,
I do too. And you know, not like I said, I've been on a rant on this, but you know, it's okay to have these new guys who are here now and doing well and stars of Formula One, not future stars. They're stars of Formula One. They're bringing loads of young fans with them from Twitch TV or wherever, or Netflix, wherever it might be. You know, and that's perfectly what Formula One wants. So don't get all patronizing by suggesting that one of these days Lando will be a star of Formula One. He is now, you know, and it's okay that George Russell, Lando, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen, that these guys are bringing fans, that the crowds are cheering huge. It's nothing untoward about Lewis. Lewis Hamilton still has a phalanx, millions of fans. Daniel Ricciardo still has millions of fans out there. Kimi Räikkönen still has millions of fans out there. Okay, so it's okay. And just because people are cheering for George or Lando, it doesn't mean that they're sliding Lewis Hamilton. Lewis has had tremendous success. Those people have cheered for him for every single win. But now they're excited about the new British drivers. And folks, that's okay. You know, just let it rest and be excited. Speaking of Dan, he had a really good start. Got towing along in that slipstream. He had great racing. He was holding Lewis off behind him for the first stint. gave Lando a chance to get, to eke out a little bit of a lead over Lewis. But he had that slow stop there again. And that was difficult because he had that, and he was pretty much consumed by the field because of that slow stop. But despite falling back into the midfield, Dan was one of the ones that boxed early for inters. This allowed him to rocket back up to fourth in a damage limitation run against Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. It brings up the point, I'll let you talk about Dan, but it brings up a point, I'm curious to get your thoughts. We're starting to see these issues with pit stops now,
Right.
And it's frustrating me because I don't know why the FI monkeyed with, they said it was a safety reason. I don't have a reason to disagree with them, but it seems like now we're having these issues and errors with pit stops, and where, a team like Red Bull would have a slow pit stop, or McLaren. I mean, Red Bull has the fastest pit stop ever, right? So it's a little frustrating to see because I feel like it's been monkeyed with in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but, honestly, I was a bit bored with the
1.7 second pit stop.
Yeah, I don't care. I'd rather see half the guys out there.
I would too.
Using the wheels.
Well,
I would like to see someone have to
refueling.
run around the car,
Yeah.
because I know, with the IMSA team, we're only allowed 4 people over the wall, and 2 guns. So, this is that's like a 18, 20 second process because of the limitations of the rules.
Right.
And it's a fun process to get it right and do it better than other teams. And there's a lot to be gained in a good pit stop versus a sloppy one, or one that the team hasn't really concerned themselves with their pit stops very much. It's massive difference, and I think it brings the team into it. I actually really enjoy it, and I was doing the lollipop again this weekend, by the way. It's very,
but see, I'm with you.
as they're coming down.
I would rather them just reduce the amount of people if they want to slow with the pit stops.
Yeah. It would make the tactics and I said it, but obviously it's about the automatic sensors. And that's why we've had some wheels come loose because the sensor was wrong. So now it's a manual process where the guy just has to touch a button and say, yes, I'm good, so that's why it's taking a little longer, I guess. And I think, who was it? Was it Perez, or the guy just forgot to push the button?
Yeah.
He forgot to hit the confirm button.
Human error. Yeah.
Human error. But that's okay. So I'm actually okay with it. But I still think they could go further with it and make it a bit more, because you don't even have time to see the pit stop, quite honestly. All you see is Karun going, oh my God, the left rear tire. I think it was, this and that. But you're unless it's a obviously massively bad pit stop, they all look the same,
Yeah,
but,
right.
I like the choreography of a slower pit stop with less people. I think it brings the team more into it, and I think the fans would actually like it more if they got to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Yeah. But it does get Karun amped up, where he gets his Karun cadence going. He's like, okay, Ferrari's coming, he just can't quite get it. It's like he always gets this, super excited. So, all right. Yeah, I hate it that they've changed something and now you got to do this and the button, and then some do it and some don't. And I kind of feel like, I don't know. I'm with you. Just make it simple. Cut the amount of people, and the pit stops will be 8 seconds long, and everyone can see what's going on, and that's great, or whatever. But I'm with you. Okay. Any more about Dan's race before we move to Alpine?
I didn't really talk about Dan's race, but yeah, it was a fine race. I think I think afterwards, Will Buxton, I think I saw something say, "Oh, he's completely thrown off, all these problems with McLaren." I'm not sure he's quite there. I know he won a race, but I don't think he's quite there. I still think Lando has the edge on him.
For sure.
But he's right there to back up Lando should anything. Obviously, I said he did beat Lando, but the last race. But I think Lando's still got the edge. But he's right there with Lando, so it's maximizing McLaren's points, and that's what's going to win him third in the championship.
I was really impressed because Lando's had an incredible transformation this year. And I was really impressed with the kind of feedback he was giving the team when they were asking about tires, or they were asking about, degradation or whatever it was. And I was really impressed after his qualifying lap and how he was describing it, or how he was describing some of the things. And it just, sometimes you see the happy-go-lucky Lando and you don't know, just how much his head is really into the racecraft and the nuances of the mechanical side.
He's been at it a long time. He's pretty experienced.
He's very experienced. So that was refreshing. Okay, Alpine. Fernando Alonso, P6, Esteban Ocon, P14 on the formation lap. Alonso tested the turn 2 runoff area and bollards, and then on lap 1, he used them.
Yes, he did.
And that is a cheeky veteran move, but it's also what allowed Fernando to be in the hunt and well into the points all day long. It happens to be what I love about Alonso. He's a wily old fox, is Alonso. He's awesome. Alonso made the most of a long first stint, and that put him really in kind of a catbird seat and allowed him to pass Max on merit on the fresher tires for 6th place. But Max was able to launch ahead of him when the rain came, and Max boxed perfectly, and that allowed him to get back around Alonso inside. So it was but it was a really good race. Fernando said it was pretty much a coin flip. As he was running in third at the time, he feels like that's where they could have ended up, in third. And he felt like they should have finished there. But the luck of the draw is when you boxed for those enders. If it was a lap early, you're screwed. If it was a lap late, you're screwed. It had to be exactly right. And it was a flip of a coin. And that was the determining factor, Alonso said. But a great race by Fernando.
Yeah, no, I loved it at the beginning. I thought that was great. I mean, we've talked about it before where, we had discussions with Nish about preparation for a start and going over all these different scenarios and making sure all these scenarios in your head, so that when whatever plan A, B, C, or D occurs, you've already know exactly how that's going to play out.
Right.
Now with Alonso, obviously I think he actually ended up playing A, and he chose, I'm sure he ran through there in the one lap, and they measured how much speed is lost going that way, and analyzed it and said, okay, I'm going to do this, and because by our calculations, he is not going to lose anything by doing it, but can gain a lot, because we've seen a lot of things happen in that first turn, 2, 3, or whatever they call it. And so if you commit to that and you commit to the full speed of making that through, you could end up being in the lead of the race if something happens over there. It wasn't a reactionary to anything that was going on. It was a planned move for that first turn maneuver. So I thought it was great. And veteran move. Now I wonder who's going to try it next year, because they know it's a good move, but only really one guy can get away with it.
And so probably 1 year. Probably 1 year. Next year, Massa will probably say, no.
Yeah, they're probably going to put something in there to stop that happen. But so it was a loophole Alonso found, analyzed, and executed very well. He was on the harder tire, I believe.
Yeah.
So it was, because he was in third when he came out of there. But I just didn't think he had the pace of that time. And I think his plan was for the long haul. So he wasn't going to use up his tires trying to fight these people. But it really helped him put himself in a position further up in the places to make that long stint work. And he had earned a 4th or a 3rd place finish, which is great for the team. And obviously, another great drive by Alonso.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Esteban, he boxed early. That didn't really work out. He also boxed late for the enters. So, there's to Alonso's coin flip comment.
Yeah.
And that was the reason that he drifted back to 14th, saying it was really a race to forget for him. I know there's a lot of talk about Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferraris for all the right reasons. There should be a lot of talk about that. But, I don't know, Paul, maybe I'm a little too optimistic, but if you've been keeping your eye on Alpine and Alonso, I just feel like they're making the small gains. They're making those incremental gains, and certainly in the hands of Alonso, they're making these small gains. And, keep in mind that this team knows how to win championships. They won 2 of them with Fernando Alonso. So they're no strangers to winning. But it seems like I want to say that Alpine, Alonso, and Ocon, they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
And do you see earmarks of that?
No, absolutely. And it's kind of McLaren-esque in a way, where, they've stopped the rot, right?
Yes.
They've stopped the bad days, and now they're there, and then occasionally they're pushing up that way. So, yeah, I think it definitely bodes well. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen next year, because everyone's got a new car next year, but it's definitely, they're learning capabilities, they're improving, they're learning how to improve. So hopefully they're better built to build a new car and be still keeping themselves on that same trajectory with the people they have working, behind the scenes as well in the design office.
Right. Alfa Romeo, Kimi Räikkönen P8, Antonio Giovinazzi P16. Kimi returned from his bout with COVID-19. It didn't really seem to take the luster off of him. Seemed in good form, and he made a very good run in Russia as he boxed early for the Inters with Russell and Bottas. So all three of them boxed immediately, and that actually paid dividends. It allowed him to jump up the field into 8th place. Kimi said the DRS train at the beginning, kind of towards the middle of the race, was really bad, but they ran with their competition in the dry. And this meant that when he did fit the Inters in the rain, he was set for a really good result, and he got one.
Yeah. And he actually was in P7 till Lando got by him in the last 2 or 3 corners or something like that.
Yes.
So that was a fun thing to watch as I was riding with Lando.
Yeah.
It was a great drive by Kimi. He was on point in the dry and leapfrogged a little bit in the rain. So I think he fully deserved his points there. I don't think he stole anything here. It's good to see him back. Obviously, I'm guessing his COVID bout wasn't too harsh, so that's good.
Yeah.
Because we saw what happened to Lance when he got that. He was definitely off boil,
Yeah, for that next race and his return. Yeah, that's a good point. And Tony had a tough race, stayed out in the rain, and ultimately that was the wrong decision. But you could forgive him because he had no team radio for much of the race. So finishing 16th is a bit understandable, especially if you're trying to box and should I box when it's raining, and not being able to get those calls would be detrimental to the race. So, and he was also hit early in the race, and so he had to recover. But it was Kimi's best result of the season so far. So not all is lost at Alfa Romeo.
No.
Let's see. Williams, George Russell, P10, Nicholas Latifi, DNF. Nick had an off when the rain came and damaged his car, and somehow I must have missed that in the broadcast.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
And so then he boxed and DNF'd, and that's unfortunate because he's been looking really good the last few races, and even in qualifying against Russell. So somehow either I blinked or I missed it. I didn't see him do that. I'll have to go look at the onboard. But George started out in 3rd place. Very little likelihood, to be honest, that he would remain there. But an early stop didn't really help matters much. He lost several places at the beginning because of that. Because the faster cars, by the time he came out, Paul, those faster cars were making their way up through the field, and then he just lost more places after that early stop. But still, he was there or thereabouts, and as one of the first ones to dive in the pits for the Inters, with Bottas and Kimi, then he came out and was able to make up a lot of ground and secure 10th position. So a point's not all lost. And yeah, I'm sure that's not where he wanted to finish, but given that it's a Williams, I think they made the right strategy call. And George is the first one crowing about pitting, and it was the right call, and he got a point.
Yeah, maybe that call was right. I think the early pit was a very bad call. Why would you pit a car that's slower than the cars behind it so they can go faster and leap and overcut you?
Right.
It didn't make any sense to me. It's like his best place was to be where he was as long as he could be there
and run long.
And if they stop pitting behind him, then then it's your turn. But up until that point, you're controlling them. As soon as you pull off, you're releasing them to overcut you. I didn't get it. If you're the slower car, you stay out there as long as you can and keep everyone back, because whatever pace they have, it's wasted because they can't get by you.
They can't. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I didn't understand that call. I think they could have had, if the race had been dry the whole time, I think they actually could have had a much better result than where they ended up or where they would have ended up by that call. So didn't understand that. because I think he was doing a good job, and I didn't see the need. But anyway, they scored points, and that's good for Williams. It's definitely a new era for Williams right now, and hopefully, like Alpine, they can keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Aston Martin, Lance Stroll. Ooh, our man Lance.
I want it now. What's
Mr. Interview.
Oh. Did you see the 007 driving the old Aston Martins?
No.
You see? Okay. Yeah, go watch that.
Okay.
You'll enjoy it.
He was driving him?
He and Vettel and Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Natalie Pinkham. Yeah, it was a feature.
Okay. No, I just saw Lance in the interview room after the race, and he's like the worst interview in the world. I mean, okay, you don't want to talk to, I get it, but he's just rude and gruff, and he will just say, no, yes, can I go now? It's like, dude.
I know.
Dude, you're actually representing a manufacturer now. You're not just, but your dad just bought you a ride. He bought a team and is now representing Aston Martin. You need to be a little bit more a little more pleasant, maybe. I get it was a bad race, but hey, there's no need to be an arse.
Right.
And he was an absolute arse.
And you're not even a works team, and you'd represent your Aston Martin better than that.
Yeah.
So
maybe I'm going to get fired for calling him an arse. Anyway,
well, but I know he's when it comes to the media and interviews, he's kind of got the personality of a carp a little bit.
But it's not even not having a personality. It's like an abrasive one, He's
seems
like got no time for it, but it's kind of part of the job.
It's part of the job. Yeah. Especially, I mean, maybe he should use the word prestigious or prestige more. Maybe that'll help him. Anyway, he had a great start though, and it moved up to fourth. And they had that crafty early stop, trying to make most of the undercut. And it was interesting because he made all the competitors reach for their calculators immediately to try to figure out what they were going to do or how they could come in and then not get in behind him, right? So it was a little bit of a strategy that forced some hands a little bit, or at least made people think about it, right? So they were worried about that. But while
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
While that was the first impact that Lance had on the race, he struggled with tire wear, fell back through the field, and when the rain came, he didn't box, but neither did Seb. And then this left Lance out, and he absolutely clouded Sebastian Vettel, putting him against the wall. And then he absolutely tagged Pierre Gasly, which got him a penalty in the process.
Yeah.
And Lance said he made the call to stay out on the slicks. That was his call. And to be fair to Lance, I'm a little surprised because he typically has been pretty impressive in wet weather and changing conditions.
Yeah, but I said this was a lottery. It was a prediction on what the weather was going to do, not what conditions you were driving in and what decisions you could make with those conditions, right? It was just you got caught out by a rainstorm. But yeah, he definitely punted Gasly. I don't think he pushed Vettel in the wall. I actually think Vettel was the wrong one there.
Because the plot thinnens.
Well, I mean, it's a slippery condition. Lance is offline a little bit, which is where you should be. and Vettel just saw this opportunity to squeeze his car in on the outside. Not a normal thing to do, not something Lance should really expect Vettel to do, and certainly not something I think was a good idea to do on your teammate. So I think kind of Vettel put himself in a precarious situation at that moment in point. As Lance is setting up for the corner, Vettel's like, well, there's my gap. Oh, no, it's not a gap. So, as much as I can bash Lance, I'm not gonna take. I'm gonna put the blame more on Vettel on that situation.
Well, maybe that's why Sebastian didn't have anything to say about him getting put in the wall by Lance.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe Seb knew it was kind of on him.
Yeah.
His race was really, he was in the DRS train for most of the race, and that made it real difficult to progress. But
I thought DRS makes everything better.
Doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Yeah, everybody loves the DRS pass.
Cool. Talk about DRS power. Jesus.
Yeah. You remember, you and I have spent years getting beaten up by our disenchantment of DRS, but anyway, now it's creating a DRS train.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, it's the same for everybody. No, it's not. Let's see. AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly, P13, Yuki Tsunoda, and P17. Pierre lost a few spots at the start, was running midfield thanks to his long first stint. So, he was looking for a little bit of a recovery drive. Could have been in order because he went long, and he chose to stay out in the rain, though. And we know that was the wrong call, and he lost several places. So not a good result for Pierre. He wasn't happy with himself.
No. Or the team.
Yeah, or the team. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was a little. It feels like the team have kind of lost the plot just a little bit right now, and and we've seen some great performances out of him and that car, and they need to get back on that because they're off the boil right now, and obviously we don't have Yuki to back anything up or take any great result if Pierre has that team on his shoulders and on his back, and he's dragging them down the alleyway right now, so they need to really get behind Gasly and get him up where he belongs pretty much.
Yeah, it's a little uncharacteristic of Pierre, and the result isn't a lack of Pierre trying, that's for sure. Yuki had a bad stop, dropped down to P20, and then the rain came out. He stopped immediately, Paul, when the rain came out, but not for enters. So the rain came out.
Was that his genius idea? Or?
I don't know. I don't know whose idea that was, but he stopped for a new set of soft compounds. And if staying out was the wrong call, boxing for a new set of slicks is definitely the wrong call.
Yes.
And so that didn't work out. He had to stop 3 times, and that's why he finished P17.
Oh, Yuki.
Imagine the F-bombs he gave the team then.
Oh, my God. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just wonder if it was his decision or the team's. Obviously, I don't know. I mean, I get the idea, but that wasn't on for anybody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But the team had radar. They should have known that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Haas F1, Mick Schumacher, DNF, Nikita Mazepin, P18. Mick had a hydraulics issue, which prompted him to retire the car, and that robbed him of a decent battle he was having with his teammate, kind of back and forth. So that was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
And for Nikita, Paul, it was his home race. He certainly enjoyed that. Tricky conditions, lack of pace meant he was relegated to last. Despite boxing, he also boxed with all those front runners on the enders. So,
did he?
Yeah. Huh. So he boxed immediately, and he did gain some positions, or gain some track position, but not necessarily positions on the grid. So unfortunately,
he was actually doing pretty well at the beginning of the race. He was had 3 cars behind him for quite a while.
Yeah.
He had Latifi and I think Yuki, or I can't remember.
Gio or somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were actually.
Yeah.
For the Haas and for him, it was probably his best race ever, I think. Obviously the pace fell off and, he didn't quite pull it off in the end. But, probably his best race, I'd say, even though his position is where he's pretty much been ending up. And, shame for Mick. But, after Mick's car went out, I really appreciated the camera got on them. Usually we don't see anything at Haas, but you saw Mick Schumacher get out of the car and, the team's in last place. They're not going anywhere. the car's broken, be very easy just to kind of walk off and get on your plane and go home, right? But he literally went through the garage and shook everyone's hands and patted them on the back, say, don't worry about it, we'll keep on pushing. And that shows a lot of character to do that, because a lot of drivers don't do that kind of thing. And so I admire it. I thought it was a good. I haven't seen the Schumacher movie, so I don't know Mick very well, but just seeing that on the cameras, I was very happy to see that, and says it shows a lot of character from the guy. So hopefully have a better year next year.
Yeah, I think it's very in keeping with kind of who he is. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's hand out some awards for this podcast. The first award we always do is Move the Race.
Get in there, Lewis.
Oh, yeah. Who do you have Move the Race?
I'm saying get in there. Oh, by the way, get in there, Lewis. Did you sense like a half-hearted get in there, Lewis? After his 100th win, it was like, I was like, that's kind of weird, isn't it? It's like, get in there, Lewis, your 100th win, right on you.
Good job.
It's like, it just seems a little bit not real.
Yeah,
I don't know. Or do you think it's kind of like the lights out things, like he has to say it now because he's been saying it for years, and he's like, oh, okay, it's time to get in there, Lewis. Time to put that in. Everyone's waiting for me to say it, but it just didn't seem very enthusiastic. I don't know. Anyway.
No, the guy just won his 100th Grand Prix, and the team were all kind of like, yeah, good job.
Yeah, it's weird to me. But I'm going to say, get in there. Yeah. I'm going to say, get in there, Alonso, because I love that idea of thinking outside the box. Which you cannot. There's a lot of boxes in Formula One, right? But Alonso, the wily veteran, does it again.
That was great.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
excellent. My move of the race is the boxing for enters. It changed the entire race, and I think that was kind of the move of the race.
It was a pivotal move.
Yeah, very pivotal move for the race. So that was mine. Let's see. Next up is Donkey of the Race.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough.
Not good enough. Who are you giving that to?
I got a few. I think honorable mention I'm going to give to Bottas, even though he came P5. I don't think he deserved it. I think it was pretty lackluster performance by the guy in the best car on the grid.
I agree.
Yuki, he's lucky he's signed for the next year. I'm sure there's some other underlying things there, not based on performance, keeping him there.
Maybe the name on the rear wing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But for the donkey, I'm going to get something that's been bugging me for so long.
Oh, what's this?
It's the F1 face masks. Oh my God, I'm so annoyed when they're talking and they're just like adjusting every 2 seconds.
Good for you.
They got their masks under their chin, so every time they talk, the masks just go like this, and then you just see it. It's like, can we just keep everyone apart, take the masks off? We can see the character of the drivers, what they're really feeling. Can we just plan this so they don't have to wear them, or put on regular masks that, when you talk, they're not constantly falling off your face. It's like, we can build the fastest cars in the world,
we can't build a mask,
but we cannot build a mask that someone can actually talk in without it having to be adjusted every 2 seconds.
I know.
Bugs the heck out of me.
Yeah.
So anyway,
good for you.
Not much to do with the race.
Nuts too.
Yeah.
They're already 6 foot away. Take the mask off. You're 6 foot away.
And then the driver's like, sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Damon, what did you say? It's come on.
I know. Get on with it.
Yeah.
Let's see. My donkey of the race. I'm going to give it to Lance.
Okay.
He's better than that, Paul.
Yeah.
I firmly believe it. I think he could raise his game in his interviews and show a little bit of compassion for the people that have to work for a living, trying to ask silly questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, bouncing into Pierre Gasly was bad. And so I'll give it to Lance.
All right.
While we're at it. Why not? Then finally, drive of the race. Woo!
Get down.
Yes. Get down.
Get down, indeed.
All right. So who do you have?
I'm going to go with Lando.
That's a good shout.
I think 99% of that Grand Prix weekend was phenomenal by him and the team and the car and everything. So I'm not going to judge that last 1%. I think, I talked about, how he reacted in the car and how that affects the team making decisions and how they relay communication. That's hopefully something he takes with him and learns. Lucky to get points out of it in the end, but I really think, the weather, I'm not going to hold against him. I thought he drove an impeccable race up until that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it's probably one of those things where Zach probably should have, after hearing Lando say no, he probably should have called Andres and said, "Come get your boy. He needs to understand when we tell him to box.
Well,
he needs to box."
That was in Long Beach.
I know he was. Did you get the chance to see him?
I did not see him. No.
Okay.
No, our paddocks are separate. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm torn. Lando, obviously, fantastic weekend for Lando. I thought it was fabulous. And I'm really torn. I mean, I could give it to Lewis. I thought being patient, waiting for that weekend to come to him for that 100th win, get that, yoke off his shoulder and move forward. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah. He knows what it takes to win a championship.
Yeah, he does.
And what can lose you a championship.
Yes.
So everything, as you said, very measured, keeping calm and letting the race come to him. I think that's what he brings right now that may save him a championship in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Carlos and Max both had. Max was last.
Yeah. Came
out of the P2, and I thought it was an incredibly inspired drive. Not a lot of people talking about that, but he was last and came to second, right?
Well, if you're not first, you're last, unless you're second.
Unless you're second, right. So, I thought it was great races by all four of them, to be honest with you. It was a good performance by all of them. Let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
We got a question from Yard Adams, and you're going to have to help me out, Yard, because you say, "Hi, Todd and Paul. Love the podcast. Look forward to it every week." Well, thank you. Here's my question for you guys today. Is that Glock? Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, Yard Adams.
Sorry, have I been having my firearms hanging on the wall?
And I read that and I was like, I'm missing something. Context. That's what I'm missing is context. I'm not sure. Maybe you're referring to when Lewis won his championship and he had boxed for Inters and Timo Glock was still out there on slicks in the rain, and that's what allowed Lewis to get around him, and that's kind of what happened to Lando.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're referring to, and I would say very similar to that.
The Glock effect, maybe, to win a championship, right?
Right. So I think you're talking about Timo Glock there, and if you are, then I would concur. I think that's very similar, where Lewis boxed for Inters, came out, chewed up everybody ahead of him on slicks, trying to limp it to the end. So, and that begat the stoic Felipe Massa in tears on the podium, who is a true gentleman about that.
Yeah.
That was tough. Let's see. Next up, Mike Smith. This was probably covered in one of the previous 750 podcasts, but how did this crew of three come together? You were all from different regions and different backgrounds and different planets, I might add. There's got to be a story behind it. There is a story behind that, Mike, and it is a lengthy story. We have talked about it in previous podcasts. You're right. It's a very long story, so I'm going to try to boil it down really quickly. In 2005, I started a Formula One blog, and it was called formula1blog.com. And I started it because I tried to go to other forums of like Autosport and other places that had forums. And it was an absolute just crap show in there of, bravado and personal attacks, and people equated the number of post counts you had as how intelligent you were about. It was just a joke. And so I wanted to create a website that was a safe harbor for veterans and new fans alike, where they could share with each other and not belittle new fans as veterans, and we could help them learn about the sport and engage. And the veterans could see new perspectives come in. And so I did that. I was posting crap to myself for a long time, and then Grace was the first one to ever post a comment. And so we got to chatting back and forth. I invited her to author some stuff. She graciously agreed. So she started writing some articles that didn't last long. She turned into the Kimi Räikkönen of the website. She just showed up in podcasts. So anyway, she was doing that. And then we started podcasts in 2007. And around that time, I met this British guy who was living in St. Louis, where I live, at the same time.
How did you meet me?
Through an F1 Breakfast with Bernie event.
So you found out about that event.
Right. So there was a group of Formula One fans here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Remember, I used to do those preseason shows, and there'd be like 100 people in St. Louis that show up to the preseason events. And you did one with me where we do them live here in St. Louis. And so anyway, I guess they got tired of me doing those, so they didn't invite me back. But we used to have a group of guys that used to get up in real time whenever the race happened early in the morning, and we would go to a place that had TVs and we'd watch it. Well, this British guy had a super cool coffee shop downtown called Cafe Mod, and it was Espresso Mod, and it was all things British. And he was gracious enough to open up his cafe and let us go down in the wee hours when it was still dark out and watch the races.
Right.
And that gentleman was Paul Tersley.
Yes, right. In my
third
life.
Yes, because your wife is from St. Louis.
Yes. So I was in St. Louis. So
Yeah. And that's how Paul and I met there. And it took me about a nanosecond to figure out this dude's a righteous dude. This guy's cool. So I said, hey, would you want a podcast? And Paul's like, well, hell no. And I said, oh, please, why not?
The first one was for Le Mans.
Yes.
Because obviously,
your
with my
sports
background in sports car racing, so we did something for Le Mans, and then we just kind of evolved in. Obviously, I know a lot about Formula One too. It just evolved from there. But
right. So that's how Paul and I got hooked up, and so there's the story, Mike. I hope that helps. So, having said that, that is what we think about the teams and how they finished. And Paul, where do we go next? I haven't even looked. I don't even know. Turkey.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Turkish Grand Prix, the Turn 8 Diabolica.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another new track for some people. I've seen Formula One cars race on Turkey, and it's been on and off the calendar for through this whole COVID time. Well, we all got to say, we're not going to Turkey, but hopefully we do go to Turkey. It was a cool track, and F1 cars haven't raced there in a long while, so it should be fun. Yeah.
So we're going to go there in a couple of weeks, but be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility. Remember what I said, why I started the website. No personal attacks. Also, if you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us some love, give us a good rating over there. And if you feel inclined to support us, you can go to theparcfermé.com. On the right-hand side, there is a link. It says support us. You can click on that and support us. We had a couple of people sign up this week, and we could not and would not do this podcast without our Patreon supporters. So thank you so much to our Patreon supporters out there, keeping this podcast alive. For all of you who don't support us, find a Patreon supporter and pat them on the back, because they are the reason we continue. And Paul, that means that you are coming back home, and then what's your next race?
Next race is Virginia, VIR. In a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. All right. Good.
Yep.
That'll be exciting. Then we get to talk to you then.
I hope we win the championship.
Yeah, the championship's on the line, Paul.
It is on the line, my friend.
It's going to be tight.
We got to dot every I and cross every T for this one.
That's right. Got to beat those BMWs, man.
Got to.
Yeah. All right.
And the Porsches.
Yeah, exactly. And the Ferraris.
And the Lambos.
Yeah.
It's good fun. It's good fun.
It is. It is. Lambos, BOP cheaters.
Yeah, cheaters.
Cheaters. All right. Well, for next week, I'll find Grace. We'll come back, talk about some F1 news. Until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. It's not what I feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.
When you wake up well-rested on a great mattress, everything becomes clear.
I do have a favorite child.
Things you missed when you were tired finally reveal themselves.
I use memes as a coping mechanism.
It's Mattress Firm's once-a-year sale and clearance. Get up to 60% off select Sealy, plus a free adjustable base, all with free and fast delivery. Deals this big won't last long, so don't miss out. The right mattress matters. We'll find yours. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.